What a year in residential real estate here locally in and around Salt Lake City, all along the Wasatch Front. 2024 has been an interesting year in its similarity to previous years, even though the macro environment is so incredibly different. Now, what's really going to throw a wrench in things in the most positive way possible, probably bringing quite the market acceleration, will be decreasing mortgage interest rates, which I do want to touch on in just a second, even though this is not a video about bond markets and mortgage interest rates. That is the big kahuna out there in market changes and what we're going to see in the coming months. Now, this year, inventory levels and levels of demand, how many homes are going under contract, how many are selling, peaks and troughs in their timing and amounts are weirdly similar to 2023, where we hit that bottom in March and that peak in November. The last 2 years, inventory peaked in early November. And last year, inventory peaks in Salt Lake County with a little bit over 2,800 residential units. Right now, we're sitting at about 2,750 kind of territory. My money is on this year's inventory peak is going to be very similar timing, very similar amount. Really kind of cool. And of course, demand figures that keep absorption rates between 2 and 3 months, very much a market tilted towards sellers. The interesting thing, I've harped on this before, is the variance in the differences on what results different sellers are getting in different micro markets and different price points. I can share a lot of recent examples of multiple offer situations and very, very good offers losing in those multiple offer situations. I can share some other stories about very much the opposite side of the fence. So very, very interesting market. But what's really unique these days, the last couple months, a decent drop in mortgage interest rates. And of course, very recently, the Fed decreasing the policy rate, which is really cool. I would argue that's going to indicate likely future declines, even though the most fascinating thing, we've actually seen mortgages, specifically 30-year fixed rate mortgages, go up very slightly. Bond markets and mortgage spreads are a very fascinating thing that operate on many variables and not just one. I know we read otherwise, but it's a multivariable equation when it's typically presented to us as a single variable equation. But fascinating stuff. But where all this becomes important is traditionally the local Salt Lake City real estate market for residential property. It does tend to slow down, basically week over week, slow down from late spring, early summer through the end of the year. You can more or less set your watch to it. But if mortgage rates continue to go down, I know I mentioned there's a slight uptick. I think that's going to be a very short-lived trend, but time will tell. But if they continue to go down, mortgage rates, that is, tough to say what that inflection point is. My opinion is that inflection point is closer than we realize. But if we cross that, demand is very likely going to accelerate a lot, making the market accelerate a lot. And the really cheesy way of putting that is next year's spring market, the 2025 market, very well could kick off quite a bit early. Like this coming fall and winter, I know we have an election coming up. The primary objection that potential clients give me is I'm waiting until after the election, which is great. Once that shakes out, we don't be surprised if we see a bit of a market acceleration at a very unusual time seasonally. Most people don't think of the holidays as being like, wow, homes are selling by the truckload. Fascinating. But it does happen occasionally. We actually have seen this same thing in the very recent past for different reasons. But yeah, interesting stuff. If you are having thoughts of selling and or buying, possibly both, probably without moving twice, I highly advise having this kind of conversation. What markets are doing, what they've done recently, what they're very likely to do in the future, understanding that that's a projection just based on the data and the experience that we're seeing. Make sure that your agent walks you through that. Whether it's me or another agent, make sure they walk you through it, and it's not just repeating verbatim what we read every day from whatever our favorite sources are. Make sure that's data from the MLS, what is actually going on, and take that down to a really micro level. What's going on in your zip code, what's going on in your neighborhood, what's going on your street, what happened with your neighbor's house that sold. This stuff is important. It matters a lot. Anyways, anything at all that I can do to help you, very much would be honored to do so. And please do feel free to reach out. Thanks so much.